Hello. The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz talks a lot about how people have, pretty obvious, you have emotional poison, mental poison, you have these bad feelings, you have these bad emotions like we all have inside of us. And there's lots of different ways to deal with that, to get rid of it. Basically, most of my channel is about this, about dealing with your inner issues that you're not facing, bringing them up, how to face it, different ways to overcome them. But what I wanted to make a video about today is in relationship to bosses, leaders, politicians. I feel like in my mind, not necessarily leader, because that sounds like someone who's doing good, but a person in power, where there's a sort of a problem here with the way that they deal with their problems. And why you probably have a lot of problems with your boss, especially if you already clicked on this video. See, I find with my bosses, the way it seems to work is they're living in the paradigm where that basic low-level paradigm where everyone's just like, oh, I got problems, let me put it on somebody else. And like Don Miguel Ruiz calls it, like you hook somebody's attention, and just like you're literally taking the emotional poison you have in you and using your words, trying to throw it on them, trying to tell them about it, trying to make them feel bad for you, make them feel sorry for you, make them want to help you, just trying to really just throw your problems on them. And what I've realized, literally just like a realization I've had recently with bosses, is this is exactly what they do. This is like their job. They're just like, oh, I'm stressed out about this, this, and this, and this. My boss is making me stressed out about this, this, and this. So I'm gonna call all my workers, or I'm gonna talk to all my workers, and I'm gonna tell all of them my problems. I'm gonna tell all of them what's stressing me out, what's bothering me, what's wrong, or not even wrong, but just what the bosses above him want done, and what is actually getting done. I don't know what I stepped on. But I realized that this is basically like 99% of bosses is they get used and then they get comfortable after a while. Like, the ones that have been there long enough that they think they're invincible and they're not gonna ever go down. They just get used to this world where they just tell other people their problems and they just put it on them. And it's like, the reason I bring this up and I'm making a point on this is because this is a low-level paradigm. We all can do this. Like as child, it's so easy, so quick to just blame someone. That's the easiest thing you could do. Blame other people with your problems. And now you put a guy in a position where it's his job to call out other people, blame them for his problems, for his stress and his worries. So I'm really just trying to make this video, I don't know, maybe give you another side of the coin, another way to look at your bosses. And that's why so many of them are so lost. And I don't put this out there because I want you to feel bad. Be like, okay, so my bosses are jerks. What am I supposed to do about it? But no, the reason I make this video, why did I make this? Hey, it's to tell you, hold up. Okay, coming back to point. The reason I made this video, I'm just kind of telling you, bosses are jerks. Here's the reason why they're jerks. They're just being a child running around with a lot of power and they're throwing their problems on other people, and that's just such a natural human instinct or reaction to do, is just to immediately throw your stress and worries on other people so you don't have to deal with it. But what I am trying to tell you to help you deal with your boss better is that's not, they get lost, they get trapped, they get stuck, they get set in that way of life, in that mindset, in their way of living. And you got to understand, it's so hard to deal with someone like that, first of all, because they want everything to be their way. They don't want to understand that other people can have different priorities. They could have a different way of doing things, that the way that they do things doesn't work for everybody. And there may be a reason for it, maybe there's no real reason for it, but maybe it just doesn't make sense to them. Maybe something works better for them, but the way it worked better for them. They don't want to understand that. They don't want to hear that. I'm really making this video because I've been going back and forth with my boss, trying to explain to him my life situation, my story, my priorities, my concerns. And then I explained to him what's worked for me, what doesn't work for me, and he's just like, no. His responses are he's not even reading what I'm saying. It's he's not responding to what I'm saying. All of his responses have been he's stuck in his own world, and in his own world, this is the way he wants to solve that problem, and he just wants to throw that on me and let me do the work of it. And it's just that doesn't work for me. And they don't want to hear that. They're just so used to just telling people their problems that when somebody gives them problems back, when somebody does it back to them, they just don't. It doesn't even come through. It doesn't hit them in their head. It doesn't register with them. And it's also why I think more people need to tell up their bosses. I believe I already made another video about that, why people should tell up their bosses. Because then when you are that one person who finally does stand up or finally does say something, like just think about you're just walking in the street and there's a law you don't agree with and you're the only one doing it, you look like a crazy person. But it's like you might be right and there should be absolutely every reason you're doing that and more people should do it. And that's why I encourage people to not necessarily tell up their bosses, but tell them how it is. Be real with them, because they don't like it when they hear that, because it's so rare for someone to stand up to them that they get lost in this world that they think they're like some kind of godly king and that nobody can tell them that their reality is wrong and they think their reality is the only reality and they don't get that. But my point is not to put you down, but to bring you up in a sense and tell you that you don't need to worry about them. You don't need to stress out about this. Yeah, sure, they're your boss. This is your job. But the difference is, the reason they're that way, when you go home, you have other priorities. You have another life. You're sitting here watching this video. When he goes home, he's still thinking about work. He's still stressed out. All those things that he's like, for those 5 minutes he puts on you, and then when you're at work, you think about it, you worry about it. He goes home and he's thinking about it all day. That way he is, like, can you imagine what it's like being with your family and friends and you're like that? Like, you're so used to just your job most of your life, you know what I mean? 8, who knows, maybe 16 hours a day. If you're really like a leader, a boss, a manager, you could be working really long shifts and you're just telling people what they did wrong, what you want them to do, how you want them to do them. Like, how do you deal with your friends? How do you deal with your family like that? Are you just like, no, you're wrong, I'm right. No, my way is always right. No, it works for me this way, so it has to work for you this way. I don't care if it worked better for you. You gotta do it this way. Like, that's honestly like how I hear my bosses talking to me. If I really try to break it down, like I try to make my videos as broad as possible, because I can't literally tell you every single scenario and tell you, how to solve every single scenario individually. That wouldn't really make sense. I can't literally go over everything, but what I can do is give you some basic guidelines, basic outlines that really do fit a lot of different scenarios, if not most scenarios, if you can get the gist of the direction I'm trying to go towards with this video and check out the knowledge and information that I want to give to you. But yeah, that's where I come back to, though. Honestly, that's my best way to just deal with it mentally, emotionally, is to understand that person is like that. He's stuck like that. He's not being rude to you. He's not being angry with you. He's not stressed out. He's not upset at you. He's like that with everybody. And maybe you see a few people he likes that, they seem that he seems cool with, but those people are probably really submissive. They're probably actually really stressed out and they don't say anything, or they just go along with the rules and they don't like to question things. Like in my own job, the people who actually are the most on point, they're most on top of doing what they have to do, most, trying to, I don't know, offense, but be a good boy, listen to the boss, do the job the right way, do the job to the best they can. They look like they're the most stressed out workers, and the rest of the workers, the ones who maybe wouldn't be considered a good worker, they have other priorities. That's all it is. They have other things that is occupying their mind and their attention. They're worried about other things. They got more important things, that they're more concerned about, or they have to live their own life on their own terms in their own way, and they don't like people telling them what to do, and that's completely understandable. That's exactly where I'm coming from, whereas like I do want to do everything I can to the best of my ability, but I need you to work with me. You're not my boss, but I'm just trying to explain to you the way I view bosses. But they're not going to work with you. They're not. If you've been trying to talk to your boss and you're trying to get through to him, you got to accept the fact that you may never get through to him. He may never understand you, and that's just life. You just got to be okay with it. And like I said, the only thing that helps me rationalize this, it's not necessarily good to make rationalizations, but just kind of feel more better about it, I'll say, is knowing that he's doing that to everybody. It's not personal. If he's walking around, he comes up to you and he's really stressed out, and you tell yourself, don't lie to yourself, because your mind will lie to you and it will trick you into thinking that he's angry at you because of something you did, and you got to fix it, and your survival instinct kicks in, and fear comes out, and you're like worried you're gonna like almost like you're gonna die, but it's expressed as the thought that you're dealing with there, whatever it is you thought about when you saw him come up to you. But you gotta understand, like I tell my coworkers all the time, you know who he's the hardest on? You know who he stresses him out the most? Himself. What's your boss's name? Nelson? Mine's is Nelson. My coworker's name is Nelson, so we're gonna use Nelson right now. And those are two separate bosses, two separate Nelsons. And it's like, I tell him, my other coworker about his Nelson, it's just like, because he looks always stressed out. And he comes up to him, and you know, my friend Eric, my coworker, he's over there like, you know, I'm exaggerating, but he's like, oh my God, he's yelling at me, he's telling me I gotta do this, they're telling me I gotta do that, they're telling me I gotta do that. I'm like, he's always like that, man. You know who's the hardest on? He's the hardest on himself. When you think he's telling you, go clean these aisles are a mess, you know who tells that more to himself? He's like, damn it, Nelson, these aisles are a mess. Why aren't you a better worker? They do it to themselves, they do it to their friends, they do it to their families. They go home and they treat everybody like that. The only thing that you could really do to literally, the only thing you can do to address a person like that, if you want to try to change them, it just be the change that you want to see with them. Forget how they're reacting, forget how they're responding. Calm yourself, center yourself, meditate, let go of your emotions, let go of your thoughts in the moment where he's standing in front of your face, or where he's calling you on the phone, or he's sending him a text message. Let go of everything, focus on the moment. Don't give him a response that's another cry for help. Give him a loving response. As weird as that sounds, or not even that way, but just like a peaceful, relaxed, energetic, emotional, understanding response to everything he says, and leave him looking like he's the weird one. Leave him to figure it out. Leave him standing there like a jerk, where you're like, man, why are you being like this? I'm just trying to, you know, see can we get some fairness going on? And they won't know how to respond still, but at least you can slowly push them towards the direction you want them to go. You can't really change anyone. You can only you can only really set an example. You can't change people. They have to want to change themselves. So yeah, that's my video for today. Bosses are jerks. Why are they jerks? At low-level paradigms. They're being children. They're throwing their problems on people. They got used to that. Don't think about it so much, because they're doing it to everyone. They're doing it to the worst, to themselves, to themselves, to themselves, to themselves. All that mental abuse, like I say all the time to my girlfriend when her sisters are like, you gotta sit up straight. You gotta look a certain way. You gotta act a certain way. You gotta talk a certain way. I'm like, that's all going on in her head. That's anxiety. Those are the thoughts she tells herself. That's all that is. That is truly, like, if she's like, you gotta sit up straight, that's because she's like, I gotta sit up this way, I gotta move this way. Everybody wants everybody else to follow their rules, to live in their reality. They want to push their life onto them, and they don't want to understand that other people have their own ways of being, and you gotta respect that. But like I said, the only thing you can do about it, because they're not going to understand anything you're trying to tell them. So the only thing you can do is give an emotional and an energetic response to them, is to forget the place that they're trying to bring you to, the place that they're coming from. Calm yourself, center yourself, and just respond as peacefully and politely and politically correct as you can, even though it doesn't feel like that. Because when you sink yourself to their level, when you go to their level, that's just an excuse for him to go more down. Then you're going to go more down. Then he's going to go more down. Then you're going to go more down. It's a really bad place to be. It just gets worse. Then you can possibly lose your job. But there's a right way and there's a wrong way to do things. There's a right way to tell off your boss. If you still try to be a little nice and polite and politically correct and affirm more about it, at least it's a lot harder for him to fire you after that. But yeah, feel good out here. Hope you guys have a nice day. I hope my video educated you. And you know what? Have a nice day.